Everybody, we're about to start. So I have got apologies from Mose for lateness and we'll put Taku down for lateness. So I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Ford. All those for, against, carried. Mike, welcome online. I hope you're still COVID free.
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Excellent.
Fit as a fiddle.
Okay, we've got no requests for public forum.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I need to apply for leave because...
You can if you'd like to.
Yeah, well, I thought I should. Leave of absence from the 27th of August until the 29th of September.
Okay. Done. Thank you very much. No public forum. Conflicts of interest declarations. No notification of extraordinary business. So we move to confirmation of minutes from the 30th of June. I'll move it to put it on the table. Seconded by Councillor Leggett. Any changes there for anyone? No. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. So we moved on my report. It's been a while since we've actually had one. We've been running a bit late. So July and August have been a busy month with functions and the rain events has meant terrible weather. Thank goodness for Transmission Gully, as it's meant the region has managed to actually stay open with our other roads still shut. July was awards seasons with the Wellington Sports Awards, the Gold Awards and the Airport Awards, and we're obviously going to do some Gold Awards later this morning. We've celebrated Kiribati flag raising, and the Cook Island flag raising. And then Wendy, Josh, Kylie and I obviously went off to the local government conference in Palmerston. And then that was followed up with the AGM online where we were successful getting our free fares for low incomes under 25s across the line. So that was good. Izzy, Kylie and I attended the pavilion opening at Whitby Collegiate, so another couple of classrooms, which was really great. Norse went on to win the Jubilee Cup, and I think there was a fair few Eastern Waters there. And Jeff, and even Mike. I think most of the council actually attended. It was a really good event. And then we had the Rotary Primary School Youth Awards, which were emceed by Nathan and Izzy, which was a joint event, and it was absolutely brilliant this time with the two MCs. Good going, guys. Pātaka hosted the Wellington on a Plate. I did the early session and I think Jeff did the late one. I think we both agree it was really, really good for our businesses, so great. Polyfest was another great day, but they've renamed it and I'm sorry I cannot remember what they've renamed it to. Pacifical Festival, okay. Well, it was highly successful. I attended the Duke of Edinburgh Awards at Government House. Where we had one from Whitby Collegiate go through, and then I went to the Tawa College Cluedo play, which I have to say I did enjoy, even though the hall was freezing. And we've had the Tokomarara Queens, the basketball. So we've had 3 games, and I think 2 of which I've watched. And the last one, we had over 1,000 people watching in the arena. So slowly it's building up, so that was great. And then this week I visited the Nature School program run in Porirua East every Tuesday. And it's a fee-free program offering Porirua East school children a chance to go out exploring and adventure and light fires and cook sticks and whittle. I have to say it was really great. So if any of you want to go up and have a look, contact Leo because it's actually worth going to. It's a lot of fun. I've got no report from Taku because he is not here. So I'll move to committee recommendations. So Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Mayor Baker. I'd like to move the recommendations of Te Puna Kōrero meeting of the 4th of August this year.
Seconded by Councillor Waddle. Any discretion there? Anybody? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. We move to our first point, 11.1, compulsory acquisition of land. I'll move it to put it on the table. Seconded by Councillor Hayward. Discussion. We got anything? Do the officers want to talk to this? Yes, Councillor Leggett.
Just for clarity for me, when I was looking at the diagrams, so we're going to buy that whole sort of double triangular piece. Is that what it means? Well, that's what we want to acquire, should I say?
Through you, Mayor Baker. No, it's just the frontage part of it. So if you go to the not the one the more survey map with the report.
21.
So
Page 21.
21 or
It's
22?
this
21.
No, 22. Oh.
22 on the back of. It's just the bit that's with the arrow that says section 5. It's just the very front of that. It's
Oh, yeah.
it's
Zoom
it's
in.
tiny.
Zoom in on it. It's the arrow.
What?
The arrow bit.
But,
Down there, that's little
yeah, which is this bit here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm clear. Yeah. I just wanted to
section 5.
make doubly
Thank you.
sure. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. All those
On
in
with it.
favour? All those against? Carried. We move to 11.2, Wanera to Onipoto Shared Pathway. We've got an update, so I'll move it to put it on the table. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. And I'll hand it over to staff. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Councillors, I did give you an update last Thursday at the project acceptance report. So the two issues I referred to there, which need a council decision, is the cost increases. And so we've got some text around why we think that's happening. Again, they're just estimates, and it's the best estimate at this point in time. And then we need a decision from you. Also, if you wish to proceed, we're suggesting you could do it in two parts. The coastal resilience side of the project, we think we can do that without touching the piece of land that is now causing us a problem. So in the cultural impact assessment, which we've had done as part of our resource consent application, it has brought to light there is a small piece of land on Te Tahi Bay Road which has never been legalised, and Simpson Grierson has had a look at that for us and said, you know what, back in 2007 the council looked at this and we weren't asked to progress the matter further. So there, without doing too much work on it, we can tell you that we think this is valid. So way back somewhere when the Crown was acquiring this land for the road, this little piece for some reason was never legalised. And the way to do it is to go through the Maori Land Court. So the cultural impact assessment says you shouldn't really be building a pathway on land you don't own. If you'd like to refer to page 30 of your agenda where the 4 photos are, and perhaps if you enlarge the third diagram along, which is in the blue box I, has everyone got that?
Yep.
In terms of the shared pathway, this is the piece of land we're talking about. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
And if you think of the shared pathway on the right-hand side, on the coastal side and the foreshore, you can see from that line that the boundary doesn't hit the foreshore, which is why you could start with the foreshore, the coastal resilience work. When you look at, if you think of a shared pathway on that side, we think we're talking about 3 metres. That's what we've been caught with for this project. About 3 metres of the shared pathway. So there was a conversation, well, perhaps we could just move 3 metres into the coast and we could get around it. But if you look at the rest of the diagram and the other 3 diagrams, what it's brought to light is we've got sections of our road that have never been legalised, which we need to sort out. And so we've got a slightly bigger issue, and again, that has to go to the Maori Land Court. So one way or another, I think we're heading there to get our roading legalised. The process, the Maori Land Court process, we don't know how long it will take. I know the steps. I also know they're under-resourced, but there are things they have to do, and ultimately you're sitting there with a judge, and if he can sort the issue out with the contemporary owners and the council, he may be able to do that, or he or she may be able to do that without a hearing, but if a hearing is required, then it would go through that step as well. Perhaps we're talking $60,000 to go through that process ourselves, and then there's the issue of valuation and compensation for that piece of land, what's it worth and how would you do that. Timing, it could take, rather than months, a year or more, depending on resourcing, and we know they're short for resourcing in the Maori Land Court. The coastal component we could start with now. We've checked out with both Porirua consenting people and Greater Wellington's consenting people that they're very open to that. But of course, that increases our cost. We will have to go for 2 consents. And if you think of, if we put a consent in September for the coastal side of the project, and that was non-notified, which we're hoping it would be because we're showing that we'll come back and do the shared pathway with a contentious piece of land later. We might get that a decision on that in, say, 3 months, hopefully the end of the year, and then early in the new year we would be looking at tendering and seeing if we could begin the actual construction of the work next year. And at the same time advance an application to the Maori Land Court for the vesting of the roadway, and that would happen via a different process. So 2 issues for you to give us some direction on. You've got the options there of pausing the project. You could wait till a new council came in to determine whether to go forward or not. In terms of getting assistance and funding out of other parties, it makes us harder. Makes it harder to get assistance immediately out of NZTA, I think, because we're holding on. The shared pathway, which they're particularly interested in, will be a latter component. So we'll be more after grants from the likes of MFE or lotteries or whatever. The shared pathway, the coastal resilience side has a lot to do with health of the harbour. Pretty important stuff. We've been lucky with MFE to date with their funding. So again, I'd like to think there are avenues that we can actively pursue to assist us with what's quite a considerable cost. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Mike and then Izzy.
Yeah, thanks for that. Look, I have 3 questions. The first one is, what's Wakakatahi's role in the ownership of the road? Do they have some role in that?
Through the Mayor, yes, they do. This is a Crown and Council issue, and as you know, Wakakatahi have a financial assistance rate of 54%. So we'll be talking to Wakakatahi about we have to legalise the situation, and you're going to be sharing the funding for the Crown will be sharing in the funding for rectifying this situation.
Great, thanks. The second one was going back to the diagrams on page 30, and we talked of the Tutai Parakete holding. That's spelled differently in the diagrams on the GIS diagrams. Does Tutai Parakete mean what I think it means?
Yeah. Something unusual must have happened there.
Not very nice.
Just confirming that through the Mayor, this is going to require a bit of research. The cultural impact assessment and the document that was sent with it, the gentleman, Robert McLean, has done a lot of research, but weaving through history and the questions officers are asking about why is this not here or why is this slightly different, there's quite a bit of that in the background.
Oh, okay. Look, and the third one is, are we talking about underwriting 16 million now rather than the 11 million that we talked about before?
Through the Mayor, yes, you are.
Right. And so we'd be saddling a new council with that, would we?
Yes.
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 Izzy?
Okay, so if you're recommending that we start the coastal or the work along there without touching the coastal area,
We're recommending we do the coastal area, which doesn't interfere with that piece of land we don't own. So we think we can come along and do the coastal works without touching that small piece of land, 3 metres,
Okay.
that where the shared pathway would be.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, sweeties, I get it.
Yeah.
So how does that impact on the resource consent that will then trigger the funding from lotteries?
Well, we're going to be open and honest about, we've got all the material for both, for the full resource consent. What we're doing is splitting it in half. So we put our funding applications in half as well. So what I was saying earlier is all the resource consenting people who are evaluating are aware of what we're doing and why we've put part of the project on hold to legalise the land first. But in terms of seeking funding, we'd be seeking more environmental funding to begin with, and then more a community asset funding secondly.
Okay, so that was my other question, was just around the funding application, because initially you'd come back to us, you'd said to us that we were going to go to lotteries with a certain amount. So we're going to go for something bigger now that the underwrite you're requesting is a bit more than. Thank you.
Jess?
Thank you, staff, for the preparation of the report. Mike's answered my first question, so perhaps it might help to explain why these type of issues come up and why we're now in a situation where we have to significantly change the nature of the projects and the timeframes involved. How frequently does an issue like this occur? And can you, in your give commentary on how frequent these types of issues occur?
Well, I don't think they're that frequent, but they've got us scratching our heads because obviously back in 2007, something was happening there. There must have been a proposal. It might have been for a childcare centre or something around that space that the council at the time in 2007 or the chief executive was looking at it, and perhaps the proposal didn't advance, so the need to legalise the land didn't happen. But we've got 4 areas here now along Tatahi Bay Road where we're looking at and going, what's the story? Why isn't it clear with this piece? We need to get that sorted out. When we acquire land, if you think of your time in council over the past 3 years, perhaps along Kenapuru Drive and what's just happened with Julia, we have little issues like that come up where we go, what is the history of this? And we try and get it right at the time. Do we have the resource to plough into doing a whole lot of historical research to find out where other areas are? Probably not, is the honest answer. So there may be other areas around Porirua where we get where the surfaces at the time we're doing project or work. But generally speaking, we're not aware of other areas.
I would just add to that commentary in the sense that councils are typically we're the holders of land that nobody else knows what to do with, and when we go to do anything very much, like we've got a disposal portfolio that we've been working through, we have uncovered all sorts of unusual dealings that are quite historical that probably, they just take some unpicking. So we don't unpick, as Andrew has said, we don't unpick everything except those that come to our attention when either somebody, and Ngāti Toa's got a couple of issues that they want us to follow up on, or when we have a project like this that we suddenly become aware of something. Our policy is to regularise all those things as we find them, because I don't want to leave them for the next council. I think that's unreasonable. I'd have been really grateful if in 2007 someone had tidied this one up. So we are trying to regularise them as we find anything. But our roads are generally okay, I think. This was a surprise to us, though. So, our data information isn't that good on all of our land holdings. So it's when we dive into some of these that we find them.
Thank you. Next question is around transparency. Paragraph 4 of the background talks about how our council had a workshop on the 14th of July and talked about a suggested 2-week delay that was agreed. My understanding is that workshop should not be making decisions. An agreement that it sounds like a decision being made. Can I get a certainty that staff and officers are aware of what a workshop is for?
Correct. Correct, councillor. No decisions can be made in the workshop. So today is your workshop. So I'm sorry about the language.
Because it does, for me, does not contain any ambiguity about that. And I think someone who would read this would think the same thing too.
Yeah, sorry, I should have caught that.
Okay. The other part is, can I just get clarity around what is going to be disclosed to the public? Because, as you know, I've been very keen to see this information being disclosed. Is it just the information that is pertinent to the resource consent that's going to be disclosed, or is it actually the anything more that has been held by council in relation to this matter that has been brought to councillors' attention as part of workshops or anything else that's also going to be disclosed to the public so that they know what's been going on around the table?
I guess what I was thinking was all the consent material and anything else that's relevant to assist people to understand. So there's nothing secret with anything we've done. So I wanted a package of information out there, and I was quite keen on, even though we were holding back on the shared pathway material, we'd have that all there so people could see the full picture. But if you went back to earlier briefings or anything else, we can certainly make that all available too.
I think it's important in terms of us, trying to maintain whatever trust we have with the community, as their feedback is crucial in terms of how we've progressed through this project. And even though material that was, superseded by later discussions and so forth, it's still important for us to demonstrate good faith in that process. Kia ora.
Yeah.
Taku?
Yeah, just on the matter of that piece of land down there at Tutai Parakete, there's actually 3 blocks that begin at the side of the Tito Bay Road that goes right up through that valley. There's 3 huge blocks that go right up to the boundary of Stevenson's farm. They're just numbered as ABC, and the one nearest to the highway begins at the side of the highway. But I think when they put in the pipes that go down to the new sewer thing, I think the council chopped off a bit of reserve on the edge of the road without any notification to us. I think that's where the issue lied. Problem back there.
Thank you. Ewan?
Thank you. This was first mooted about 12 years ago by Councillor Kelly. We've been looking at this for that time. Is it possible, the coastal resilience work actually needs to be done because the road it's giving away now. So could we do this in 2 parts and sort of change the recommendation to agree to proceed with the coastal resilience work and review the costs involved for the pathway in a separate situation?
That's what option 3 is. That's what's being moved.
Well, no, it says agree to the increase in the project costs, which means that's the total increase. I'm only talking about isolating the coastal resilience part and separating the pathway out. So it becomes 2 projects.
You probably need both, but are you trying to move something?
Well, no, I'm asking the question really. I mean, the thing is that we can't not recommend that the coastal resilience work gets underway because, we've got orange fences there now and all the rest of it, and it's been like that for some time. So that work is imperative that it starts as soon as possible. I'm just saying is if we can treat it as 2 projects, the resilience and the shared pathway as 2 separate projects.
Not sure the community would be very happy with that. I think we need to run them as 1, but I'll take officer's comment. Wendy? No? Andrew?
I think you could move a motion along those lines, recognising that our Transport Department is still going to have to legalise the road, so we still have to go to the Maori Land Court with that side of it. But broadly speaking, if you look at the cost that's sitting there at the moment, the coastal resilience work, the estimate is about 12 million. The shared pathway is about 4.4 million. So really what you're saying is agreeing with the officers of getting moving on the 12 million component now and holding off on the 4.4 until it's the land is legalised, and we would bring it back to council at that time for the application for the shared pathway resource consent and the construction.
It is saying that, yeah.
Well, no, it's not, because it says the option is agree to increase in project costs, full stop. So we're agreeing to the 16 million. What I'm suggesting is that we agree only to the 12 million to do the coastal resilience work, and we put on hold until we are in a position to make a decision based on the walkway, once we own the land, to proceed with the rest of it. That's what I'm saying.
If we did that, we would then not regularise the land because the project would be in doubt. So they, in our brain, they are connected thoughts. So if you are truly saying you don't think, there's a real question about whether we would do the shared pathway element, then we wouldn't necessarily spend the money to go to the Māori Land Court to, they are connected.
Okay, I'm happy with that explanation.
Okay, Josh?
Yeah, just really quickly, I wanted to speak in favour of the recommended option and thank officers for coming to us with a good solution to this problem. It's not an ideal situation, but to be able to progress in a way is still really good. And just to observe, in terms of the decision that we're making here, this is something we've all talked about as a council at length. I think we've all agreed this seems to me like a little bit of a flagship project that we've really focused on, that has a whole lot of co-benefits that we've talked about. And the longer we delay, there's only one direction costs are going to go. Let's just get on with it and get it done.
Ross?
Yes, I was going to ask about the proportionality of the resilience work versus the pathway itself, and you've answered that question for me, which is great. And I mean, can I ask what that construction means? So it's going to be enhancement of the foreshore as well as bolstering the road? Repairing the bits that are falling away or whatever.
Yeah, construction. The whole coastal resilience works is part of protecting the road. Because we're doing it with soft engineering, that does mean that we get those enhanced harbour benefits.
I understand that, but there are parts of the road that are falling away now and have tape around them, etc. Yep. Does that include that as well?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Okay. So what will happen there, just out of interest?
Build a wall. Yep. If those areas do become increasingly eroded, then we will have to address that with interim measures, and that's part of the consent application.
Okay. So just one more thing. Look, we've gone down this path, and because there's so much coastal resilience, and I'll echo what Josh has said. However, going back to what Mike said, I'll also point out that recommendation 2, it says agree to the increase in project costings as they currently stands. So without wanting to teach fellow councillors to suck eggs, that exactly means there will be increased costs, and they'll be coming back, officers will be coming back for more as this project goes on. So just as long as it's not $16.4 million, it's going to be a lot more than that. So I just wanted to point that out again.
I think we did realise that, but Whāwhoi.
Actually, that was something I was going to mention a bit. But in terms of... Ross kind of stole my thunder. All good. Thank you.
Have you got another question?
Yeah,
Izzy?
Just a quick thing. So in addition to what Jeff has been saying, transparency around the costings and things, we do need to look at when you bring a project to us that we look at worst case scenario. In this case, it's gone from 11 to 16 in the space of 1 year, 2 years. So anyway.
Through the Mayor, because it was a question, remember we've got 30% contingency in there. So if you took an amount of 10 million and said 30%, that's 3 million. And again, I just don't know in the market at the moment. We sit in procurement committee inside the council, tendering work all the time, and 50% of the time we're on our budget. We're delighted that we've got a number of parties competing and they've come within the budget. 50% of the time it's bad news and we're scratching our head and going back out to market or trying to cut back and value engineer, and we certainly have some signals with some of our large capital projects from Wellington Water that will be coming back to council, where again we're going to have to make some serious decisions about our priorities and how we move forward. So, early days.
Bafoy.
Just a sub question regarding that point, doing it both two stages. In option 215, it talks about that the land ownership could take years. So if we do the resilience work, that means the second part of it could take years. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. So the Maori Land Court isn't well resourced. They'll be very helpful, of course. We've talked to them, and I think I mentioned last Thursday that the contemporary owners who had a hui recently, or some of them, they were quite buoyant about making their own application anyway. So, but we just don't know how long it will take. But if you took this one particular, block I, a judge may be able to look at the matter and get the parties together and reach agreement and reach decision within 12 months. We just don't know how quickly they can start, and the Maori Land Court does have to do its own research on this matter.
Mike, I'll let you go one more time, but when you're in full council, guys, it's meant to be one round. So Mike, then Ross.
Yeah. My question was just coming back to the 30% contingency we were talking about there. It's worth remembering too that these figures have all been generated by officers and hasn't been done by quantity surveyors yet. So the 30% probably pops straight back in again.
Yeah, Ross.
Can I just ask, did I read in here that, given the current circumstances, so if, for example, maybe it doesn't work now, because if we agree to this, if there is a problem with the road, let's say there's a bit of an earthquake and half the road falls away, do we have to get a consent to do that emergency work? We would have to get a consent. So if, for example, the whole road wasn't able to be used, that means Te Tahi Bay would be cut off until we get a resource consent? You got to be joking.
I think our transport,
we just do it anyway,
through the mayor, I think our transport manager has told you before that the legal New Zealand is one lane. He can get by with one lane for a period of time.
So if we agree to this, does that hold as well? I mean, if we agree to the recommendations, does that hold that if there's the road falls away, we still have to get a consent?
What I'd say to you is over the last couple of years we've had slips around Porirua. We've got slips at the moment where we've got resilience issues and people coming to us concerned about our roads and things. And just in this case, we're talking about if it's coastal, you have to work with Greater Wellington Regional Council, but we move pretty fast on emergency works and resilience works. So I wouldn't see it. I haven't got alarm bells ringing about that sort of thing.
Okay, I'm going to put the motion as it is. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Before I move on, Taku, have you got a report for us? Because we didn't have anything in the beginning. Do you want to have? No? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like...
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to invite Councillor Morrell to give his valedictory speech after, is it 6 terms or 5? I've lost track.
Well,
No, we're going to miss you, Ewan, but
thank you.
yeah, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, actually, my journey started 20 years ago because I was on the business Porirua board, and Mandy Natusha, who was the CEO, approached me and said, look, we desperately need someone on council who's actually run a business or owns a business. So naively, I said, well, yeah, okay. And then naively, she talked me into standing for the mayor as well, which was, I now know that you certainly can't run a city if you've never had some experience in local government, and I just hope that the voters coming up in this election realise the same thing. But my first experience was I got elected, and then in those days there was some fairly strong-minded councillors, and there was quite a lot of egos, and we had several small committees in those days, and everyone wanted to be the chair, and so they started the lobby, not like the mayor appoints them now. In those days, it was elected, so there was a fight. It was going to be a bun fight at the first, and somehow I got nominated to be the deputy mayor along with Councillor Letia Ahoy, and it became 7-7. So what happens? Our names got put into a paper bag, and my name got pulled out. So I was the deputy mayor, and I guess in the deputy mayor's role, we had a very strong-minded mayor in those days who attended everything, and so I used to get a call every night at 10 o'clock, which would go on till at least 11:30, and I'd just hold the phone out here because I didn't have a clue what the person was talking about. But anyway, that's just a little aside. I guess if I look at what I've achieved, I was astounded when I came on council that they never had any asset plans. They hadn't a clue about the condition of any of their pipes or where they were. Well, I think they knew where they were, but they had just absolutely no idea about asset plans. So I was sort of instigated in getting those brought in. I guess if I look also at the city centre, at the time we had those horrible canopies, and it took us a long time. I think the one thing I have learned in business, you make a decision, you get on with it. In council, you make a decision, and like Leonie Proto Walkaway, where 12 years later we're sort of trying to get there. But the city centre was a challenge, and I remember in my first experience in Porirua was in 1970s when I managed a supermarket here, and it was a thriving shopping centre with James Smiths and all the rest of it, and so I'm pretty retail was sort of in my heart. So the city centre was important to me, and I actually used to have a bulldozer at council, and I should have bought it today actually because it's on my desk. And I always said, well, what we should do is start at one end of the city and bulldoze it in the city centre and start again, because all the buildings that we had were old and run down, and and some of them are still like that. And it's trying to get owners to do something about it. I've learned, you've only got a certain amount of clout, but we cut a few, we knocked a few down, and so it is what it is today. I think the other thing is the Praha Arena was a goal. It's interesting that the community, those who never want to use it, were against us doing anything about it. The other one was old and run down and leaky, and many of my constituents say, no, we don't need it. We'll never use it. Why should we pay for it? But if you looked at the expo last week or a couple of weeks ago, the number of people and just the facility, I'm particularly proud of that. Also, obviously, Aotea advanced. There was meant to be a business community there. It never happened, so it now houses. I think the other thing was village planning. I came to work this morning and I drove through Eastern Porirua because I think, if I look at the Waitangarua Park, which was a result of the village planning, and that gives me a great deal of pride. And I look at what we achieved in Plymouth and in other parts of the community up here in Ranui, just the things that we actually achieved through that process, I'm particularly proud of. And as I say, the only proto development, Liz Kelly, Councillor Kelly, who her and I used to have really ding-dong fights around the council table. But outside we were the best of friends. But but that was one of her passions, and I'm delighted to see that we're actually going to do it. I think the biggest achievement for me is to see the housing regeneration in the east. I'm pretty... Sorry. As I say, I drove there this morning and I went to Leicester Street, and there was a particular house there in Leicester Street that had holes in the wall. And, you know, that house is virtually the same as virtually it is. It's got a bit of plastic covering up the holes. And I always, as you know, I'm a National Party member, and I used to say to the national government at the time, you guys, you don't do anything in Porirua because you don't need to, because you know you're never going to win the seat. And I also say to the Labor government, well, you never do anything either because you know you don't have to, because you're going to win the seat anyway. But I am pleased that the regeneration did happen, and that it was started by the national government, and I like to think that I helped them there, and certainly Labor picked it up and took on with it, and so we are seeing it today. And I'm particularly proud to say that, you know, we've still got a long way to go. When I drove around there this morning and looked at just the housing condition of some of the housing, and the private landlords, some of them need a real boot up the backside. I've had some wonderful opportunities too. I happened to go sister cities, which, in reflection, a complete and utter waste of money. But I did get to go to Japan a couple of times, some of it at the expense of at my own personal expense, but the Rotary Club was also in Lower Hutt. We had a relationship with Japan, with Osaka, so I was able to go to our sister city. I had a visit there with the mayor, but I also got invited by the Lower Hutt City Council to go to China with their business group, and that was an experience that I'll never forget. I can't remember the mayor's name. He was an absolute idiot, and he didn't last very long, but he was impossible to travel around the China with. But anyway, wasn't our mayor, so... And then I got to go to Blacktown in about a week's notice to celebrate Waitangi Day, which was a real honour as well, because we went through the Aborigine cultural experience in Blacktown, and that was, as I say, it was a moving day, and one that I'll always remember. The disappointment, I guess, is... the Performing Arts Centre that we tried to get, and the whole thing around the Whitireia Performing Arts Group, and I guess to some extent the demise of Whitireia, which wasn't their doing. Roger Sowry, I'll never forgive him for pulling the plug on the performing arts, and I still don't talk to him when I see him. Councillors, well, I've had some interesting councillors. Councillor Douglas, who, I got into politics because I couldn't stand people like Ken Douglas. But I have to admire him. I've got a huge amount of respect for him. He sees both sides, and when he was on council, he had the ability to bring a debate back to reality when all the councillors were waffling on and going all over the place. Latia Ahoy, well, we were great enemies at start here in Tracy Waters. I thought, my God, what have we got here? But I think today Latia and I still talk, and I like to think she's a friend of mine, and I think she thinks I'm a friend of hers as well, so that's great. Maureen Gillen, Sue Dow were, strong, long-serving councillors as well. I think one of the things that's impressed me, I've always believed that Porirua is a special place. And I've lived here since the 70s. I had a bit of a time away, but I came back. And there's something about this community that is just amazing. And I don't regret living here at all. And I think all of the councillors that I've had, bar one I could probably mention, but I won't, who really had the best interests of their city at heart. It might well be that they come from the other side, from my other side, in terms of the likes of Josh and Jeff, but I believe that they have, you've all got the best interest of this city, and I'd like to think we're elected to represent the whole city. And I like you guys to remember that. So I don't want too many cycleways and walkways. So for the minority, I want it what's good for me when I get old, or when I get a lot older, which isn't that far away. I think the only other concern I have, which I think about, is where we're going with this intensification. It does concern me that we're getting feedback now from up in Kenepuru Landing there that being so close together is causing some issues, and we really got to teach people to be able to live in that sort of environment. And lastly, I think I need to talk about the future of Porirua City. I don't believe, and have had this thought for some time, or belief some time, that it's unsustainable to go forward. We cannot inflict, and if I look at there's up at the Kimberley, up at the old Kimberley home up in Levin, where there's a housing development. A good many of the people up there are senior citizens who have left this community and are now living up there because they can't afford to live here. And so the rating issue, and I know we have these challenges and we can't do anything. It's difficult to handle and it's difficult to deal with because we can't. The costs are there. So some other way, I do believe there's going to be, or has to be, a way of funding local government in a better way. And if it's amalgamation, then I think we should be going down that channel very, very strongly. I just simply believe that this country is too small to have too many councils as they do, and to rely on the way the funding is, and particularly with the infrastructure, the condition that it's in now, that has crept up on us. And I'd be guilty to say that we voted against doing some things in Porirua because it was the impact on ratepayers. But when you're talking $6,000 or $7,000 rates now for people and more of them are going to be on fixed incomes, that is a real challenge. And so I just don't know what the answer is, but maybe it is amalgamation. So I'm disappearing, but I'm not going to disappear completely. I'm still chair of the Pātika Foundation, and I'm passionate about that and will continue to do that because I've always believed that is the jewel in our crown, or one of the jewels in our crown in Porirua City. And I'm also pleased that we've got this great, I've seen this great association with Ngāti Toa develop over the years. And my only advice is to Ngāti Toa is don't run before you can walk. But that's all I'm going to say on that, Riz. So I bid goodbye. It's been, a huge honour to be here. And I'll miss it, but you get older and life goes on. So thank you.
Thank you, Ewan. We will celebrate with you on Saturday. But thank you for that. We're going to move that we go into public excluded, seconded by Councillor Nallo. Oh. Before we do that, can I... Not really. Sorry, because otherwise we're all going to have a go. Saturday night. Sorry, you're coming Saturday night. Oh yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, we've got public coming in at 9:30, and we've still got a long way to go. So, all those in favour? All those against? Carried.